everybody. It's great to meet, not face to face, but online, all of the staff from IT Sligo and all of the staff from St Andrew's College. It's the first of such meetings, and it's a wonderful occasion, and particularly as we come up to Christmas, to kind of reflect on what's happened over the last 10 months, because we've only been talking together in regard to incorporation for the last 10 months, but a huge amount has happened, and we'd like to kind of just give you a sense of where we've come from and where we're at now. So I'm joined here by Dr. Edel McSherry, President of St Andrews, and other colleagues from St Andrews and from IT Sligo, that people will introduce themselves when they talk or present. So we might, just conscious of people's time, we might move on. So just a sense of who we are. Obviously, staff of IT Sligo know about us and our strategic plan and our ambition to become a technology university, and I'll talk a bit about that more in a minute. And I've been presented already to the staff of St Andrews a number of weeks ago, so I think you've got a sense of who we are. So I might hand over to Edel to talk a little bit about St Andrews.
Thank you very much, Brendan, and thank you for inviting us here today to IT Sligo campus. A little bit about who we are. I suppose we are known in the department as a College of Education, but our identity has grown way beyond that. We were set up in 1952 by the Ursuline Union, and as an initial teacher education college, and it was pretty advanced at that time because there was no third level really in Sligo for women particularly. So that's where our humble beginnings came from. However, we've grown, and we're now a college of approximately circa 1,600 students, of them 950 being undergraduate, mostly on accredited courses. We have three schools: School of Education, School of Home Economics, School of Nursing, Health Science and Disability Studies, and therein we have a lot of other disciplines such as biology, economics, RE, Irish and business, disability studies, health promotion, nutrition, etc. So we have grown, as I said, beyond our original the original intention of the college. Just to say how, in terms of governance, we are a company limited, owned by the Ursuline Union, and governed then by a board of directors. And just to give you a little sense of timelines of in terms of our accreditation as well, we were a recognised college of NUI from 1978, and then we moved then to a college of NUIG in 2006. And in and around that time, we began to get most of our courses accredited by NUIG. And then after that, in 2012, we began an incorporation process with NUIG, and that went on until 2020. And then this year, in February of this year, was the first time we began to look at that. Was a very protracted incorporation processes, and the context had very much changed here locally in terms of the TU and all of the possibilities and the logic of our two institutions merging. And so then St Angela's board sought to meet with the executive in IT and explore an incorporation, and we were very appreciative of a very warm welcome at that time. And since then, there's been an enormous amount of work and energy and momentum put behind this, and a memorandum of understanding was signed on the 6th of May. And I'll finish at that because I'm sure, Brendan, you'll be taking us on from that and where we are now. Sure.
Well, it's very much a joint presentation, so you know, and it's interesting to get the two perspectives, I suppose, on what we're achieving here. But just to stand back from it, I think it's just wonderful that all of higher education in Sligo is going to come together under one roof. And it's great for Sligo just on a personal level and a community level. And I think the message I've got out there is the community really welcomes this and think, Sligo will be stronger for us. So, whatever about the nuances, and we'll get into the details, about how it's all working. But I think just as a big picture item, and you can see the picture there of St. Andrews, the nursing building looking out on the Lough Gill. I mean, that whole sense of Sligo is coming together at last, and I think it's wonderful. So just moving on where we're at in the IT, and as again colleagues will know, we've been working for the last 9 years on this. So about the same time, I suppose, as the discussions between St. Andrews and NUI on incorporation, we've been working on the Connacht Cluster Alliance, which is ourselves, GMIT and Letterkenny, to come together as a technology university. And actually, those years were well spent. We did the homework on building the trust, on building the relationship, and getting to know each other's strengths and weaknesses and what we could work together on. So now, having arrived at the submission for the TU application and being successful in it, the international panel recognised the quality of our relationship, let's call it, and the depth of our relationship. And that's culminated in the Minister's announcement a few weeks ago that we will be designated as a technology university on the 1st of April, and we will be called the Atlantic Technology University. And now that is comprehended, obviously, across the CUA, the Connacht Cluster Alliance. St. Andrews are coming in to that family, will be in the 9th campus. There's already 8 campuses across the CUA into the Atlantic Technology University. And that's our objective here, is to bring St. Andrews in and be fully part of that family when we're a technology university. So what do we mean by technology university, just to give colleagues some sense of where we're at. So the blue area there is what we comprehend as the Connacht Ulster Alliance region, which is all of Connacht and it's Donegal, Cavan and Monaghan, and it maps onto the Northern Western Regional Assembly area and to the European definition of the Connacht Ulster Alliance. Believe it or not, there is such a European definition. But all the yellow spots there highlight the various campuses across the CUA. And obviously IT Sligo is in the middle of that, and St. Andrews College. So we're going to be a very strong element of our component of the Connacht Ulster Alliance and the Atlantic Technology University when it gets established. But also, I suppose, an impression that I always get when I see that is the huge amount of the land mass of Ireland, let's call it that we cover and will be serving, and also the rural nature of it. When you look out, to the west there and West Donegal as well, that we are very much the TU that's going to be addressing the needs of people who can't access higher education or in rural communities and helping those communities to survive in the long run. So there's huge opportunities for our TU in this. I suppose, just the context there, we are in the Nuts 2 region. It classifies as a developing region in European speak. As you can see, the blue there's nothing north of that Dublin-Galway line from a university other than NUIG at the moment. And then a big focus for us is that employee education, is to build up the communities and make them viable communities across our region. So a number of, not to go into all the detail, but we want to increase access to higher education. That's a big part of what we're about, because people out there who cannot otherwise access higher education or are reluctant to, or have never attended higher education in their family's history, we want to bring them into education, broaden the width and depth, make a larger pool of, provide a larger pool of expertise to the community and also to employers and new businesses who are considering coming into the region, building up research collaborations with partner institutions and other businesses in the region. Very much, I said, the online education, employee education is very important. And you can see the blue patch there, we're very much on the border between ourselves and Northern Ireland, and there's a lot of conversation these days about cross-border, all-Ireland higher education developments, and Letterkenny are very much involved in this LYIT, but we're part of that as well. And the TU, the Atlantic TU, is clearly going to be the TU of the South, let's call it, that's going to negotiate in cross-border higher education developments. So it's a very interesting time for us to be doing this. Just without going through all the details, these are some of the stats from our submission document. So you can see the number of new entrants there, over 20,000 enrollments, and these figures are from last year. So we're already greater than that. I think we're somewhere around 22,000 across the CUA, because these figures don't include St Andrews. So as Edel said, the order of 1,600 students coming into this will be close to 25,000 students by the time we all get together. A significant number of graduates, and it's not just the number, but that's the number of talented people we're bringing back out to the community, having processed them, if you want to call it, not the ideal word, but having educated them for so many years, and now they're there available to the businesses in the community and services. Research, significant involvement, certainly across the Conocultural lines, and we would be, our target in the CUA or in the TU is to have 4% of our student body engaged in research. In Sligo, we're 6.1%, so we're well advanced in that regard, and hoping and planning to grow that and develop that further. Participation of staff, participation in outreach, maybe, and more wider education, the springboard programs, the number of part-time online students identified there. International students, again across the CUA, we have over 1,100 students from other countries taking our courses. So just to give you some flavour, and staffing again, over 2,200 staff, again not including St Andrews staff and that, and a significant income generation across the three institutes, which obviously has to be minded and budgeted and spent wisely, and there'll be lots of discussions across the 8 campuses and now the 9th campuses of the CUA, of the ATU, about how that money gets dispersed. So again, that's another reason that we would like St Andrews to be in the family day one to participate in those discussions. Just a sense of the people involved, and these are the people at IT Sligo alone who were involved in putting together the submission, thinking it through, planning the strategy of the new TU, and very involved in various committees and workshops and work groups and so on to bring it all together. So I suppose credit to that group there, and Anne Higgins is behind me here. She's in the forefront of the picture there with her arms widespread, because Anne was so delighted. Anne leads up the Conocultural Alliance project management work for IT Sligo. There are equivalents in the other institutions, but hugely Anne brought this group together and got us all working on mission and message to put together a very successful submission. So acknowledging Anne's achievement in that. Just very briefly again, maybe for colleagues in St Andrews, there's a lot of other things we do outside the wider, outside the narrowness of just education in its own right. We had conferring this year face-to-face out in the Radisson, the first time we did it off campus, and you can see people wearing masks during conferring and then not wearing masks outside for the photographs, and went down very well with staff and students. We have lots of visitors, parents and students I should say, for the conferring. Lots of visitors, the ministers visit. There are different ministers coming down, ambassadors coming down for various occasions. A lot of other extracurricular activities. We use our Knocknarea arena quite a lot for community events. So you can see the range of activities. We have a big UDL conference online, the biggest in the country. There in May, 500 people attended that. Open evenings for students and so on. And our staff quite involved in the creatives, just to show Una Mannion's book there, A Crooked Tree, and there's more to follow in that, in Una's portfolio of publications. And we have Tommy Weir there down in the bottom right, very involved in photographic work and photographic exhibitions. And Tommy's exhibited in the region over the last couple of months. So just a sense of the wider involvement. Obviously, there's a lot of sports activities as well, but not for today because there's a lot of detail in that. But our students are. I think we have the largest number of sports clubs and societies of any higher education institution in the country, which I suppose shows the breadth of interests of our students in clubs and societies and the level of involvement. So I'll hand over to Edel now to talk a little bit about what's going on in St Andrews.
A lot's going on, and we also have a lot of political visitors, and Deb Valera was the first person to sign our visitors book, actually. Right. But just I suppose just to say what on our last visit, that was when the minister did say, Minister Simon Harris, that he did support officially announced in terms of just making that he was supporting the project in terms of exploring the incorporation with IT Sligo. Just to kind of say here that home economics is, we are the sole provider of home economics, or had been up until recently, where there's one other small provider. So we have a real footprint in terms of home economics, being the sole provider for the decade, and there before only being 2 providers. And just some nursing moved in 2002 to St Angela's, and has developed there. Just to give you a sense of who we are, as well, our management team, and we also have a director of incorporation, Sean, who's here as well. Just incorporation of St Angela's, where we're at now in terms of the minister. His announcement was where he officially announced a change of policy in the direction of travel is now with IT Sligo, and the policy previously was that St Angela's would incorporate with NUIG. That is no longer the department's policy. The policy is now to incorporate with IT Sligo and the TU. So he announced his approval on the 23rd of November, and the 2 things that he did add in that announcement was, and this was, we needed an amendment to the current IoT Act. In order to facilitate this transfer legislatively, in order to have the legislative framework to be able to sign a business transfer agreement between the stakeholders of the Ursuline Union, St Angela's College, and IT Sligo. So that amendment needs to be made, and also he is also providing an amendment in the TU Act to allow other institutions to incorporate in the future. So this legislation needs to be brought through the Dáil, and this is currently being progressed, and it's in the Higher Education Act that the 2 amendments will be, and that should be done by the end of January. So that is the only extra piece that the minister announced on that. And then the incorporation into the new TU will be a matter for the university's governing body upon establishment. So really in this, I just wanted to kind of highlight that in order for us to incorporate into IT Sligo, that needs to happen before TU enactment date. If it's after TU enactment date, there will be an amendment there to allow an incorporation. However, it will be a matter of the university's governing body upon establishment. And as we know, currently we have an MOU with IT Sligo, and we're clear of the framework that we're working towards in terms of our project with that. Just the benefits for St Angela's, are the benefits of us all getting together is an enhanced regional provision in Sligo itself and throughout Northern and Western region, with greater cohesion, scale and synergies. We can, coming with initial teacher education, and we do provide courses from undergraduate right up to pre-HD level. And as I said earlier, a lot of those are accredited courses with the Teaching Council and the Nursing and Midwifery Board. So that strengthens the TU brand and portfolio in all of those other disciplines that I mentioned earlier. And we do have a national centre of excellence in home economics, and we have other centres in, for example, disability studies. We have a more cohesive approach, and we'll strengthen the TU with significant cross-border potential. And the big one is we create a university town for Sligo with over 10,000 students, bringing employment and income and enhancing social and cultural fabric of the region, which is extremely important. Before designation date, as I said earlier, Opportunities for staff for St Angela's. We've got more access to education and training, PhD completion supports, research capacity funds and president's bursaries. We do undertake research in St Angela's, as I said, but the critical mass will help us improve that. Transfer and potential pathways for all staff in all functions, diversity of disciplines and synergies for new programs, collaborations across disciplines, which is already occurring, I know, among our two institutions. Enhanced campus facilities and access to state-of-the-art facilities across the TU, which is very important to us on St Angela's, and the need for a capital spend there, and the shared resources that can happen. Collegial and supportive community post-COVID. We'll have great opportunities, and learning supports, online advisors, instructional design, health, that is all available here. I have to add, we are a college of education, so we'll be bringing a bit to that in terms of synergies and opportunities for students, which is what this incorporation is actually really about, is the future of this of students. Access to state-of-art learning facilities, enhanced student experience, and this will be really great for St Angela's students. Sports, teams, societies, the canteen, the greater buzz on campus, always something happening, larger student population, more opportunities to mix rather than isolate in program, and I have to say in programs, and I have to say the gender mix will be welcomed. In terms of sharing visions and ideas, learning pathways, more choice and options, greater opportunities to take electives for students outside traditional programs, volunteering, language. We've got Irish, a discipline in Irish, which will be very good for the student body. I had a conversation yesterday with our students' union there, where they were saying the students' union here, that's what they could do with as an Irish officer. So that could be available immediately. Student services, health, library, disability learning support, more. We have some, but there'll be, obviously we have a disability studies piece there in St Angela's. Careers, international, we have international students. We'd love to expand all of that, and it'd be much better for our international students to mix here. Students' union, and member of larger student union community, stronger voice to influence policy. So I think I have said enough here.
Right. Well, there's plenty there, and thanks, Edel, for that. And I hope people are getting the sense of the value of this and the worth of it to students in particular, but also to staff and the community in around Sligo. It's going to be a very significant progression of higher education for the region. So maybe just a little look at the organisational structure, how it might look when St Angela's incorporated into IT Sligo. And as Edel said, the objective is to complete this incorporation process before designation as a technology university. So there's two parts of that. One is the legal piece, and then is the actual time it takes to enact that. And colleagues will talk a bit about that in detail in a minute. But we're trying to look ahead and say, well, when the incorporation happens, how will we organise ourselves? And maybe some context of that. This is what the TU or the CUA set out in a submission document. And the three yellow columns there are the three colleges of the new TU, as we made in our submission. So that's the Sligo College, the Donegal College, and the Galway Mayo College. And the blue horizontal lines are the faculties. So we proposed 4 faculties. Now, obviously, there needs to be a lot of work done on, will it be 3, 4, or 5? Who are, and all will be in any one of the faculties. What do we call the faculties? That discussion still has to be had. And again, back to the earlier point, this is why we want the St Andrews community to be in with us on day one, so that we together we can participate in those discussions when it gets down to disciplinaries and departments within faculties. So the context of this, it's the TU itself, and the CUA set out about the merger of 3 institutes, IT Sligo, Letterkenny and GMIT, and St Andrews will be part of the Sligo College. That's where this is headed. So in terms of the organisational structure, just IT Sligo, this is what we look at the moment. We have a governing body that rules it all under the Act, and I report to the governing body. And then we have various vice presidents for research, innovation, engagement, Chris O'Malley; for online development, Jacqueline McCormick; and for finance and corporate services, Elizabeth McCabe. And then we have the 3 faculties of engineering, also called schools. The faculty is the word that's being used more now in the TU. Engineering and design, headed up by Una Parsons. Business and social sciences, headed up by Breda McTaggart. And science, headed up by Jerry Bird. And the glue that brings it all together is our Vice President for Academic Affairs and Registrar, Michelle Blacken, who's known to both groups of staff. Very much, when I say brings it together, I mean, again, we're an academic institution, and the academic integrity of what we do is so important to us to make sure that we're viable as education providers. So what will the proposed organisation look like? Now this is, don't worry about the detail, you can look at it in the slide later, but the colours, I suppose, tell it all. So over in the right are the orange, blue and green, and they're the 3 faculties that we have at the moment. And the red is where we see St Angela's fitting into this overall structure. So on the left there is more the corporate structures and academic affairs and those type of functions. But just focusing maybe on the faculties, the proposal is that 2 departments currently called schools in St Angela's would move into the Faculty of Business and Social Sciences, and 1 would move into science, and I'll show that in more detail later. And then the red column down the middle is where the head of the St Angela's campus role would fit in, and that would report as a member of the executive to the president and be an advisor to the governing body. So just blowing that up a bit on the 2 faculties, so you can see in dark blue at the bottom the Department of Education would come in there under Mary Shannon, and the Department of Home Economics under Helen Maguire would fit into the Business and Social Sciences. And I think there's been lots of discussions in both camps, let's call it, about the rightness of this, and it's never a perfect fit. I mean, you could even look at our departments of business and our marketing, tourism and sport and social sciences. You know, are they rightly fitted in here? We have engineering with creative studies, for example, in engineering, and does that fit in there? So, you know, there's never the ideal, you know, isolated discipline specific faculties, if you want to call it. Faculties tend to be a catchment of a number of discipline areas. And over then in science, and I should say, yes, sorry, just to again go back to business and social sciences, we have 3 departments already. Department of Business, Valerie McTaggart heading it up, and the Department of Marketing, Tourism and Sport headed up by Thomas O'Flaherty, and Department of Social Sciences headed up by Brenda Feeney. So those 2 new departments from IT Sligo's perspective will join that group. And then in science we have Department of Life Sciences headed up by Neville McLeglin, and we have a Department of Environmental Science headed up by Francis Lucy, and a Department of Health and Nutritional Sciences headed up by Thomas Smith. And the proposal is that nursing, the Department of Nursing from St Andrews would move in, then headed up by Evelyn McManus. So that's the kind of organisation structure. And just to comment on that, I mean, obviously, from another perspective, you think of workload in this, and you know, can a head of faculty manage all this? And it will be challenging, and resources will need to be put in to support the new arrangement, let's call it, and the new structures and the additional departments, and the move again for the Department of St Andrews, you know, coming in, and how that is resourced. But I suppose the objective here in that is that these departments then will be fully part of the faculty structure of IT Sligo as we enter the new TU, and will be fully supported and be fully members of the debate and the discussion that will happen subsequently about the faculties of the new TU. And those discussions could take a year plus if you look what's happened in other TUs around the country. So it's very important that this happens day one, so that all that conversation can happen together. That's on one front, and the other front is the academic framework and academic governance of what we do. That again, we have our own governance here, obviously in IT Sligo, and as we enter the TU, that model of governance, academic governance, will continue in the new TU. So it's very important that the departments from St Andrews join that and learn how our governance works and become part of it, because obviously St Andrews, hopefully those departments will continue developing and growing, so there'll be new programs on there. And also for the intake next September, those students need to have a home and an academic quality assurance process that they're following. So again, all the reason to get this family together as soon as possible. So just on the head, so currently Edel is the president of St Andrews and Amanda McCloth is out on maternity at the moment. The proposal is that the title will be head of St Andrews campus rather than president, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But with particular roles, of academic and executive role, including but not limited to the incorporation transition oversight. It's going to be a huge project to bring the activities of St Andrews, both academic and corporate, into IT Sligo and into the TU. Developing academic synergies across the TU, so it doesn't stop with what we have in IT Sligo to develop synergies with. We have 7 other campuses out there across the region, all with very good and expertise and good disciplines in their own areas of specialisation. So we would see this head of St Andrews campus getting out and about and finding out what's going on around this TU and then bringing that back home for synergies, and vice versa, bringing the synergy opportunities out of St Andrews into the TU. And then the campus development, we're very aware that this campus in St Andrews has not received any capital development funding from the state for many years, decades even, and this needs to be addressed. So there is a body of work to be done to drive that project forward to make sure that the funding comes in. Just on the president's role, for colleagues in St Andrews, there will be no president of IT Sligo's campus in the new TU. There will be just one president of the TU, one governing body of the TU. So for myself, I don't know what I'll be called in 4 months' time. Probably a lot of things.
We're behind you.
But we're all experiencing this change, and the same with Letterkenny and with GMIT. The role of president is probably the one role across the CUA that is going to be suppressed because under the Act there's only one president for the TU. Now, it may be anybody in this room or anybody across the existing CUA or indeed St Angela's. The applications are open, just say, until the 21st of January for the role of president of the new Atlantic TU. So blow the dust off and get your CVs ready for that. But the message is that there won't be a president in IT Sligo, and the proposal here is there won't be a president in St Andrews campus because that wouldn't be appropriate again under the TU Act. Okay, just that was some sense of the organisational structure and what we feel will work and why. So we're going to move on a bit detail now to the incorporation process, and I'm handing over to Anne here behind me to bring us through that, and Sean will come in as well.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Edel, for that. So just for colleagues who don't know me, my name is Anne Higgins. I'm the aforementioned IT Sligo CUA project manager. And I'm deliberately labouring IT Sligo and CUA because, as Brendan said, on April 1st, that title is gone. IT Sligo ceases to exist as a legal entity, and CUA, which is a strategic alliance between GMIT, Letterkenny and IT Sligo, that's all going to be replaced by Atlantic TU. And as Brendan said, we're going through a period of significant change, not just in our colleagues in St Andrews, and we acknowledge that and appreciate that, but equally, as Brendan said, for all of us here in IT Sligo, we're coming from very proud institutions who are autonomous, who have got very proud legacies to build on, but we acknowledge that now we're going to move now collectively together to build something better, greater. And as Edel rightly said, we need to remind ourselves, why did we start this journey in the first place? It was to improve the student experience, to improve the student outcomes. So it's important that we remind ourselves of that as we're going through this change process. And as Brendan said, change is hard. Change is coming to all of us. There will some people who will find an immediate change, and I have to say probably a lot of people in this room are going to find an immediate change in April 1st. Other colleagues will find change will come incrementally. But what will happen, and just to assure everybody that we have plans in place, we have processes in place to manage that change process, to bring you along with us with information, consultation, training and so forth. So just to rest assured that we're with you on this journey. I suppose I just wanted to, before I get into the details of the TU update as well, just to say that when we made our submission, we built really the CUA submission around 3 key pillars: that we would be a TU of scale, of quality and of impact. So Brendan has already alluded to the scale. We are going to be the second largest TU in Ireland. We are going to be the fourth largest HEI in Ireland. That is a significant player now in the higher education sector. Of impact, the impact that we have on our students, transformational change that we have on their lives, the transformational change that we have on our staff who see their career advancing and progressing. And Brendan and Edel has alluded to the transformational change. I'm delighted as a Sligo native to be able to say this. Look at the change we're doing for Sligo as a university town, and then obviously the region and beyond that. So key things I just want to say, and the last thing about the famous submission document that I would say to Brendan is now resting under my Christmas tree, balancing it. But anyway, in terms of the quality of the submission document, it has been acknowledged by the department and the HA that actually we came out with the cleanest report, CUA, and we are getting the kudos and the returns on that. So just to say that, and for instance, it's a testament to all of the people who are involved in that. We have over 130 people who are involved in the international panel, and people here in the room that were involved in that. We have over 4 working groups, 19 subgroups across the CUA. So it was like a programmatic review, institutional review, school planning exercise on steroids, but a significant collective effort. So just to acknowledge everybody who's involved in that. And then equally for our colleagues in St Andrews who obviously were not involved in that direct process, but just to give you the assurance that everybody across the CUA, you're now part of the discussion, part of the family. They're looking forward to welcoming you in, and we will have processes in place, as you know, to involve you in all of those subgroups, working groups and so forth as we move on. So in terms of what are we doing, just particularly I suppose for colleagues in St Andrews, I wanted to make sure that you're very fully aware of the next steps in the TU. As Brendan has said, we now know we're going to be Atlantic TU on April 1st. April 1st is not a joke. We had to choose that date because we needed to have significant time lead in for the presidential search. And as Brendan said, you know, dust off the CVs. 21st of January is the closing date. Significant interest, Brendan, from internationally as well. So it's going to be a very robust competition, and good to see that, and great to see that interest. But we're doing, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but we have significant, can I tell you, robust plans, designation date plans in place. So we're literally through every single function, be it from corporate services, be it from academics, be it from the research side of it. We're absolutely going through line by line to make sure that we have everything in place that we will operate effectively, legally, statutory compliant on day 1 of ATU. And we project teams released for HR and finance. I know Michelle is leading out on the academic alignment and so forth. So just to give that assurance to colleagues that we're working. And again, Edel and Declan are involved in those conversations so that they're fully involved in and aware of what is happening. The other thing just to say to you in terms of, you would have seen the name Atlantic TU, and I hope you like it. We went through a very robust process with that. And we got McCann's, who are our branding agency that we're working with now, who actually came in and gave the external perspective on that. And it has been very well received, I have to say, in terms of the name. We're now working with McCann's to come up with the visual identity. So new logo coming to you soon in January. And of course, you know, we consult with you and inform you on that. But a lot of work, as I said, underway on that. But then to move on in terms of what will happen on day 1, as Brendan rightly said, there's going to be 1 president, 1 governing body, and eventually 1 academic council. So significant change coming all our way here. So on day 1, the new president will be appointed, and he or she will have an inaugural meeting of their governing body, which is the slimmed down version on day 1. It is the president, the chair, and 3 external members, and that correct? So it's 4 of them in total.
4 in total.
4 in total, yeah. And then what happens is the new president has, under the Act, has a year to go and develop a new strategy for the TU. So he or she will consult widely with everybody and develop the new strategy. And as we all know, out of the strategy, the structure will follow. So there's no point in us all trying to second guess what the structure might look like. We honestly don't know. But again, just to assure colleagues that you will be consulted, informed, updated every step of the way, because again, you know, the whole thing is to get to the, and I use this phrase thereafter, maybe, but just in terms, I couldn't even honestly say to you, is that 2 years, 3 years? We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns for all of us here in this process. But what the end point is that we're a single unified TU that is operating across every function under unified processes, policies, procedures to get the best outcome for our students, I suppose, which is the key thing. And then I'm going to hand over shortly now to my colleague, Sean Gallagher, with whom I'm working, I have to say, very closely with, and it's a pleasure to work with. And we've been working on some joint project activities in St. Angela's. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you a sense of some of the key ones. So as you can see, we have our project teams that are in place. We're mirroring, just to say, the same approach that has worked so well for us across the CUA. We're doing the very same thing with St. Andrews. So we have various subgroups or project teams set up, and you know, Declan and Michelle are working closely together, and I know Michael is here, I see him, so yeah, so HR is working, you know, closely with Tom. So, and then we have our heads here are working very closely with Reid as well. So this is all just to give you the assurance that this is happening behind the scenes. So we're all full steam ahead to make sure that it's working, but full steam that it works right. Okay, so just to give you that assurance of that. So as you'll see, you will have seen, hopefully you enjoyed the first inaugural newsletter, the joint newsletter. We're going to have others now, we'll be starting in that. I'll just be coming up with a list of who will be joining on the next podcast. But again, to keep you informed and updated. And again, we've been very welcome, can I say, and I mean this genuinely and sincerely, we've been made very welcome, Eden, in St. Andrews campus when we've met with all of your staff, and be very positive engagement, and we sense that desire for this incorporation to happen. So that really gives us the assurances that we have the support. You know, so I'd like to acknowledge that and thank you that, and thank everybody in St. Andrews that we've met so far, and look forward to meeting more of you, I tell you, in the new year. We have a roadshow planned that we'll be getting to visit you, and equally that you'll be coming in to visit us. And I suppose the other point I just want to stress in the same way with the CUA submission, we need a ballot by our colleagues in the TUI. So what is happening is there's a working group called Working Group 7 that is currently working through to get an agreed MOU with our colleagues in St. Angela's. What will happen is that once we have reached agreement on that MOU, that will be balloted initially by our TUI colleagues in St. Andrews and then by our colleagues across the CUA. So we would be hopeful that we'd be able to agree an MOU in January and then go to ballot. So they're the key project updates. So I'm going to now hand over to Sean Gallagher, who will take you through a bit more detail on that. Thank you. Okay.
Sean. Thanks, Anne. Just to introduce myself, my name is Sean Gallagher. I'm the Director of Incorporation in St. Angela's, and in recent years I've been working on the incorporation with NUI Galway. The ship has been steered around. We're now moving full pace towards incorporation with IT Sligo, and the pace is unprecedented. The project is now at a pace that we have never been at before. And just to outline to you, we are now doing, or we will achieve in a year what we have been planning for 10 years to do previously. So just to acknowledge that, to acknowledge the openness of IT Sligo, the welcome we have received, the level of cooperation, etc. And just to acknowledge the work of Anne as well. I've learned a new trick. When Anne says, will you, I say yes before I hear the rest of the sentence, because it's quicker to do it that way.
It's working well, the relationship.
So by the end of November, there were a number of outstanding tasks. So due diligence had to be completed, a very thorough legal, financial and HR due diligence process. The Minister announced his approval of the incorporation in principle, and that was a huge milestone for us. And we will be making a submission to the department stating the type of capital development proposals that we wish or we expect in the incorporation. For December, the ongoing negotiations in Working Group 7 with the TUI, as Anne has outlined, is a huge priority at the moment, because that ballot has to be finished before we go to legal incorporation. So the proposed incorporation date at the moment is March the 1st. That is subject to the legal framework being in place. So the amendments and the Education Act is to be passed, and then the TUI negotiations are complete, and the ballot has taken place, and the ballot has been positive across all 4 constituent groups. And then a possible enactment date is April the 1st to align with TU designation. So some issues to be resolved before the legal incorporation, just to demonstrate to you the multifaceted nature of the project. And maybe just to say that there are people in both St. Angela's and IT Sligo for whom they must almost feel that the incorporation has taken place already, because they've had to take on extra work, extra roles, extra responsibilities. So just to acknowledge that. So as I mentioned already, the due diligence process is to be wrapped up completely. The legislative changes are to happen to the IoT Act and the TU Act. The ballot is to take place across the 4 TUI branches. There's an agreement then to take place, and this is being spearheaded by the finance manager, David Keane, in St. Angela's, on the transfer of St. Angela's pensions. So that's happening with the department. The funding model for the students into the future. There are 2 different funding models at the moment. So to have agreement on how that is going to be managed and how that will be supporting the incorporation, and a commitment from the department as well on the level of capital development into the future. And there are still issues to be resolved after legal incorporation and before we are enacted. So all St. Angela's staff will be notified at least a month in advance, and then we will finalise the transfer of staff. And there's a huge amount of work being done by both finance and HR departments at the moment, and confidentiality agreements in place to ensure the ethical transfer of data for all of you. And as was mentioned earlier, the agreed academic governance processes. So St. Angela's already are well accustomed to rigorous academic governance procedures with NUI Galway. Over the next 5 years, the level of support with NUI Galway will be phased out. And in the meantime, we have to get used to equally rigorous but different academic processes with the IT Sligo and ultimately with the TU. So there will be different systems to be used, etc. And just to make sure that all our programs are validated to the highest levels. So these are the steps that we can control up to the date of designation, and as Anne mentioned, after April the 1st, we've all become part of the TU, and the world is changing for everyone. So on that note, I'll hand back to Brendan and Edel again, just to outline the next steps and to wrap up our meeting for today.
Well, thanks for that, Anne and Sean. I think it's very important that people understand the depth of work that's involved and that is going on and where we're at in that process. Just to say before we wrap up, if there's any questions people want to ask, I think that the line is open, as they say, and we have already at the previous event we had with St. Andrew's staff, there was a series of questions, and we have provided answers for that in kind of an FAQ type of format, question and answer, so they're available for people to review. But I don't know, Adele, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about?
No, I suppose the next steps are to keep going. The train is fast moving, and the next station is the stop, so we don't want to stop on the way. So we just need to intensify and collaborate among all our project teams, keep on with the consultation and communication plan, and we need to probably move ahead more with deepening the engagement across the academic disciplines and research disciplines, and that is beginning. And I know, thank you very much, Breda has been out with her team to School of Education, and I know that Helen has been communicating with both Dr. Bird and Breda and Evelyn as well. But I know that there's going to be some meetings between staff. There's probably a need to get to know each other first and then see what's, and we've done a lot of, headed up by Michelle, the spearheading the course potential course development, which is really exciting actually. All of the, which will probably, you know, I might be gone by the time all of them become gone to other to retirement before they really come to fruition, some of them, but a lot of them are really possible in the short term. And so those are the types of things we're working on. But I suppose in terms of the project and the next few months, it does demand a huge amount of energy to get it across the line, and for us all to work together as a team to get it done. Easier said than done, but definitely I know that there's definitely momentum there now, and people, I have to just thank IT Sligo for the welcome of St. Angela's staff and for the openness. And you know, I'm just even thinking at the top of my head about the ICT team and how much they've progressed so far in terms of how they're going to align all the systems, how they're going to get the new email up, and they're all just ready to go and all extremely committed to it. So I suppose that's the next step, but just to kind of acknowledge here all the work that's been done to date. I recognise all the future work that needs to be done, and just to thank everybody for everything they've done so far. So
yeah, well, thanks for that, Adele. And also just to say, your own staff have been have been heavily involved in this. And you know, to be fair, you have a smaller community of staff to draw on. So you know, and invariably we're talking to the one person in an area or the two people. So it's a higher demand on yourselves in kind of in a proportional sense. So again, to acknowledge, I mean, we both get it, I think, both parties, and we want it to happen. It's the right thing. I mean, you know, to cut to the chase, this is, as we said earlier, this is about the students. And you talk about the synergies or the opportunities already for new programs. This is going to make it better for students. We will have a wider portfolio of relevant offerings that people out there want. So that's what we're about as higher education providers. So it's wonderful. So thank you all for coming in, and thank you all for being online. I hope you got something out of that. And communication is another key word there. We will keep that going between the newsletter and events like this, just to keep staff informed, and obviously through, in a more formal sense, through the union representation discussions that we're having. You'll be aware, hopefully. And if not, feel free to contact us, either Adele, myself, or anybody in the team, if you're saying, well, what if, or what's going to happen next. We're very much open to answering those queries. So thank you all, and I hope you have a nice lunch, but also a nice Christmas. We're heading into that season now, and I think everybody's weary. You know, apart from all of what we've been discussing, there's a little bit of the day job going on as well, and a bit of COVID being dealt with. So, you know, it's been very stressful for the last year and a half on everybody, and just to acknowledge that. And I hope you all get a good, decent break. Switch off the laptops. Do not be sending emails around to everybody else, as we're all want to do. Fire off the emails and sit back with a glass of wine maybe afterwards. But you know, don't do that, because everybody needs to break, the sender and the reader of the emails and the messages. So hope you have a great Christmas, and we all be back in the new year for pleasant developments around incorporation and designation. Thank you.
Happy Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.